I'm Don Shump with the Philadelphia Bee Company. I've been beekeeping for about 7 years now. I like to joke it was a quarter-life crisis that got me into it. But I was a web developer in a former life. Did that for, I don't know, maybe 5-6 years, and was starting to get a little tired of it. Ended up working on a wooden tall ship down on the Delaware. And right around that time, my wife had asked about growing our own local food to cook with. And I said, sure, that's great, and we'll go join a community garden. And it was a 3-year waiting list for every community garden in town. Right around that time, colony collapse disorder was really hitting the news, and I saw a YouTube video of a gentleman in New York who had 17 hives in downtown Manhattan. And I said, well, if he can have hives in downtown Manhattan, then I can have hives in Philadelphia. One of my shipmates had said that she was at a community garden right around the corner from where I lived at Adam, and I said, great, I'd love to go volunteer for, try it out. So I met with Carolyn Scott, who's a 70-year-old retired physical therapist, who was the beekeeper, real tough woman, and I told her, hey, I want to be a beekeeper. I'd love to get into it. She looked at me, sort of deadpan, and said, you're going to get stung, right? And I said, yeah. And she said, okay, you're in. I was like, that's it? And she was like, yeah. She said, most people come in here and they hear they're going to get stung, and that's kind of the end of them. So I volunteered here for a year and started keeping more and more hives, and started some hives in Delaware County, moved them all downtown into the city, and now I have 7 apiaries and over 50 hives. We've had bees here for a while, and we keep them in the northwest corner of the garden with a series of what are now holly trees built up in front of the hives, and the bees, that's to keep the bees out of the way of gardeners. The term beeline is literal. Bees will fly in a nearly straight line out of the hive once they get oriented, and if you actually raise their flight path, so if you put something that blocks their flight path, they'll fly off and then level once they get over top of it. So we've set up the garden here so that you can stand in front of those holly bushes. The bees will literally fly right over top of your head because they have to avoid the bushes to begin with. And broadly speaking, we'll leave you well enough alone. I've brought people in here, and they've had to ask me where the bees are, and we were standing within 10 feet. So the bees pollinate a lot more than just what's in this garden space. I mean, this garden couldn't possibly support the 5 to 10 hives that we regularly have here. The bees will fly on average about 1.5 miles, but will go up to 3 miles away and pollinate everything in the surrounding area. And it's part of what makes the honey really interesting every year, and it's some of the best in the area. Philadelphia has a pretty rich and interesting botanical history, and our honeybees are able to take advantage of that. A lot of areas outside of the city are heavily populated by just a few floral sources, whereas downtown we have a mad mix of all sorts of flowers, and it really shows in the honey. The honey ends up being like almost like wine, where every year the taste and the mouthfeel and the finish is different. So one year you'll get honey that's you crack that lid and it's super floral. A few years later you can have a rainy spring and you get like a late summer honey, and it's real mild and kind of smooth and buttery. So it really makes the beekeeping a lot of fun, and doing it downtown is it's never boring work. This is the garden that I got my start in, Southwark, Queens Village Community Garden, and the garden's been here for I believe over 25 years now, and the bees got started in it just about the same time. The garden's been it's great. I mean, there used to be an elementary school here, and the area's really been improved by the garden's presence. I mean, this is probably one of the nicest spots in the city. I feel very fortunate that I was able to join up and take part in it.